What's up, you guys? Welcome to Fightful. Here with a name you know. How could you not? We've had the pleasure of talking to her so many times, and now we're talking to her about the Last Hart Beating from the dungeon to WWE, out in just a matter of days. By the time you guys are seeing this, we've got Natalia, or should I say, Nattie Neidhart.
You can say Natty.
I'll say Nattie Neidhart. How you doing, Nattie?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, I'm so excited. I could not put this book down digitally this weekend. I had it pulled up on my desktop. I had it pulled up on my phone. It's fantastic. Everything from reading about Macho Man riding a dirt bike into a stop sign to your career is covered in this book. And I know that when we had spoken in interviews prior, you said, I don't think people really know my story. They think they do, but they
Right.
don't. I really didn't, Natty.
When that's the thing is that when people are reading the book, they're going, I have a whole new respect and a whole different perspective of your life and of who you are. And somebody that the very first person actually to read my book was Bianca Belair.
Okay.
We were on an overseas trip together, and we were just talking about the book and just chatting back and forth. And I told her I was writing a book, and I said, actually, I just finished it. Do you want to take a look at the manuscript? And she said, yeah, I'd love to. She read the book in 2 days, and she was so excited. Every single chapter, she would be like texting me and like, I can't believe this, and I need to talk about this and what happened. And like, she's like, I read it so fast. It was such an easy read, but she's like, I have a million questions. She's like, and I had no idea that this was your life. And so she even got a little emotional about it. She's like, this is just something. She's like, this is something that I need. Like, I needed this book. She goes, I wish I would have read this book before I started my career in WWE, because this book lifted me up so much. It's so powerful. And so I never forgot that, I never forgot about what Bianca said about the book, because what she took away from the book is exactly what I want every reader to take away. Just there's a very strong story. It's not so much, the book is not so much about wrestling. It's more about relationships. Wrestling is the backdrop of the book. It's a lot about relationships and people in my life. It's a lot about the people in my life that helped me grow. The good and the bad, they helped me grow so much.
And right out of the gate, like you hear from Bret Hart, who straight up says, it's my favorite. Natty is my favorite, without a doubt. Uh, you read about how Davy Boy helped you get like your first job. Like
Yes.
he gave you like the tip to get you your first job when you all needed it. And it really sort of reflects society as well, because you said like when you were at school and your family was struggling, everybody just thought that you were rich because your
Right.
dad had been on TV. I think a lot of people in like that still follow wrestling today just assume, oh, it's the Hart family. Of course she was always rich.
Yes. And that's the thing, is that I wanted people to know, like, my family's been, I've gotten so much, like, my family's taught me so much. I love my family so much, but my family's had ups and downs in the industry. And so I think when I was trying to break into the business, there was a lot of turmoil going on between my family and the industry in general. So it was not easy, because, there was stuff going on, and big stuff. But I would never trade my journey in. Like, that's the thing, is that, like, after writing the book, I was like, I love that I had to go through all this stuff to get here, because now I just appreciate it so much more. It's like this journey made me such a strong person. I wouldn't be the person that I am today without those highs and lows. But people didn't know that growing up, like, it was always feast or famine. And I've heard people like Stephanie McMahon talk about it. Her dad had to mortgage their house for the very first ever WrestleMania. People don't realize that even with my grandfather was a promoter. And when business was good, they would eat. When business wasn't good, no one would eat, and they couldn't turn their power on in Canada in the middle of a crazy 40 below winter. So that was always like our childhood, is when my dad was working and things were good for him, we were okay. But it was more it got more rocky as we got older, where things just weren't good a lot more of the time. So it helped me build this resilience and grit. But I dedicate the book to my dad. He's the pretty much the main character in the book. He's the person I dedicated it to. But I think he comes off so human in the book. Like, I think people will end up loving my dad more after reading it and going, wow, I had no idea that he was going through so much and he overcame so much. So it's just people are getting so much from it, Sean, and I love that. I don't. It's not a wrestling. It's not a book about like, you're not going to get me going off about wrestling for 300 pages. It's about relationships and the people in my life that made my life so rich.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched every second of nationally televised wrestling from like 94 to last year, and it really put in perspective to me. I was like, but you brought up how, well, he went back, but he was only back for like 6 or 7 months. And I thought about it and I was like, oh my gosh, like between the two WCW runs, New Japan, 2 or 3 WWE runs, he was there for like 6, 7 months at a time. And you have to think about like, well, what that does to your family and what that does to you as a young woman who then took all that and still ended up loving pro wrestling despite those ups and downs. Like, how do you think that roller coaster sort of affected how you viewed wrestling?
I just and this isn't a diss to my dad at all, but I just always wanted I wanted to create my own stability in my life because growing up we didn't have any stability. And
Mhm.
so everybody on the outside thought you know, we were okay, we were wealthy, we were famous, like this famous family, but for us, I just knew that if I worked my ass off, I could always take care of myself. And so that kind of grit, I feel like it's my grandfather's grit, that Stu Hart grit, where my grandfather was a little boy that lived in the Saskatchewan wilderness. He slept between dogs to stay warm in the crazy Saskatchewan winters. And he ended up taking up wrestling at the YMCA because he didn't have anywhere to live. That wrestling at the YMCA saved my grandfather's life. And so I always remembered that. And so in my own life, I was like, I'm going to work so hard that no one's going to take everything I have, that I will always be in control. It was a trauma response to being in, to having the rug pulled out from under us as kids. But at the same time, like I got stronger because of it. I love wrestling. And the truth is, Sean, is that wrestling has given me everything I have. I owe everything to wrestling. I have a beautiful family, a beautiful home, a beautiful car, beautiful cats. Everything I have is because of pro wrestling. So there's always just going to be this enormous amount of gratitude, but you can't, to me, like it was so important that I went through tough times. If I didn't go through those tough times, I wouldn't have been able to have this powerful story that could change people's lives. And so I'm grateful for it. But there's a lot of humor in the book too. I think people will
There
laugh.
is.
People will laugh out loud reading it.
You also had a forward from The Rock. What was the process of making that happen?
Dwayne is amazing. Dwayne is somebody that really shows up for if he showed up for people that are important to him in his life. And he just showed, I basically walked up to him at the fight. What is it? I walked up to him at the Netflix launch in January. So the very first premiere of Netflix, I think it was January 1st, but I walked up to him. He was at the Netflix launch, and I just said, "Hey, I'm working on this book. I would love for you to do the forward." And he said, "Absolutely." He just said yes right then and there. And then not only did he say yes, but he researched the forward for me. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, I got some questions for you because I'm going to write this, and I want to write this in a very special way. Um, I want to know." And he sent me this beautiful message about. He's like, "What does legacy mean to you?" And so he sparked this question that Dwayne ended up helping me with the very ending of my book. The very last page of my book was because of the conversation that I had with Dwayne about what does legacy mean to you. So he worked really hard on the forward and worked on it personally and then got it right to me. And I'll never forget because think about it. He was filming The Smashing Machine.
Mhm.
He was filming a movie where he had to be the most vulnerable that he's ever been in his entire life. And I was working on, I was working on my book. Of course, here it is. I was working on my book, and this book is the most vulnerable I've ever been in my life. And he stepped up for me and showed up for me in a way that I'll always be just so grateful.
I know that you've spoken about this briefly as we wrap up, but you had mentioned like one of the big conditions of re-signing with WWE was them supporting this book. But I mean, I know that you would have had options outside of WWE. Was this book going to happen regardless?
Well, the big thing for me, and I'm glad that you're clarifying it, because the big thing for me wasn't. I saw something the other day. the things I get tagged in on Twitter and Instagram. I saw something the other day was like Natalia made these demands that she had to have this in order to. I was like, no, no, no. There was no demands. It was just a conversation.
Let them
I was
think
like
that though. Let
the
them
big
think that you did that.
the big thing for me with re-signing my new deal is that it sparked all these new things that I wanted to do. I said to my husband, I said to TJ, I said, I don't want to continue if I can't grow. And a new contract for me wasn't just about like, I mean, I wanted to find something I felt was fair, but I also was like, I got to be able to do these other projects in order to continue doing this. Like there's several other projects I'm working on right now, but the book was something that had been pulling at my heart for a long time. And I was like, Nattie, take the plunge, do something that is speaking to your heart. I went to WWE. I told them, listen, this is something that's really important for me. I want to write my book. And they were extremely supportive. They actually have been so supportive throughout the entire process. They helped me with photos. They helped me with they're helping me with my book tour. They've been like above and beyond supportive, and it just means the world because it just solidifies that like it's a collaborative experience to be able to share my journey across 2 decades with my life growing up in the Hart family, the ups and downs of my childhood, and of course, 20 years of working in WWE uninterrupted. And then to have the company that I work for being so supportive, it really means everything to me.
Well, we encourage everybody to check out the book. I loved the book. I knew it was going to be something that I liked. I just adore the Hart family, and thank you for sharing all this with us. It's The Last Hart Beating from Dungeon to WWE, available wherever books are sold on October 28th. Nattie, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sean. I'm so happy you liked the book. Thank you.
Until next time, my friends, we're out. If you aren't watching pro wrestling with NordVPN.com/Fightful, what are you doing? You need a bunch of services. You need a bunch of money to watch wrestling these days? Not really. Not with NordVPN.com/Fightful. The most basic tier averages out to $2.98 a month over their great 2+ year plan. And as a result of that, you can watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, PLEs from WWE all on one Netflix account. Here's how. You subscribe to NordVPN.com/Fightful. You get the app on any device, any operating system that includes your phone, your smart TV, your desktop, your router. You log in, you change your virtual location, then you just log into Netflix and you've got access to all of that content. Pay-per-views, save half of what you're paying here in the United States by using NordVPN.com/Fightful. That barely scratches the surface on the great features available with NordVPN.com/Fightful. But as a wrestling fan, it's a can't miss. NordVPN.com/Fightful.